Funding schools with local taxes must end. The federal government must guarantee world-class funding for all. Hello, I'm Mark Norberg. I'm an 8th grade English teacher and I'm running for NEA president. The purpose of this video is to discuss one of the core issues of my campaign, which is that the budgeting model for American schools, that is, our use of state and local taxes for the majority of education funding, is insufficient, unreliable, and entrenches systemic racism and economic disparity, and it must be changed. When we look at all of the major problems that we face, inadequate compensation and staffing, overcrowded classrooms, substandard facilities, insufficient funding lies at the heart of all of it, and our formula for education funding is at fault. Certainly, we are in one of the biggest crises we have ever faced, and our budget shortfalls are beyond anything we've experienced, but the problem itself is nothing new. In fact, it was totally predictable. Because the truth is, we are constantly facing budget crises and layoffs, and will continue to do so, so long as we continue to fund our schools with local dollars. And I say, the only way forward is for the federal government to start guaranteeing world-class funding, just as it guarantees world-class funding for our military. This is necessary for three very important reasons. Number one, local funding is unreliable and erratic. To be effective, school programs must not only be fully funded, but consistently funded over extended periods of time. As educators, being forced to make constant alterations or cuts to programs keeps us in a perpetual state of chaos. Even worse, many schools don't know exactly how much money they have until well into the start of the school year. That's unacceptable. But even when we do know our budgets, local funding is insufficient. A 2014 Department of Education study found that it would take about $200 billion to bring America's crumbling school facilities up to acceptable standards. So long as major corporations like Amazon are paying zero in taxes, Congress has no business telling us we can't afford more funding for schools. But should Washington need help brainstorming, here's a few simple solutions. A 10% wealth tax just on America's 621 billionaires would raise $270 billion per year. Here's another idea. Our military budget, now in excess of $1 trillion, could be cut in half, $500 billion moved over to schools, and the Pentagon would still be left with more money than Russia and China combined. But there's another reason that local funding must end, and it may be the most important reason of all. Number three, local funding entrenches economic disparity and systemic racism. When school funding is based largely on property taxes, earnings, and wealth, the results should surprise no one. Wealthy areas get great schools, poor areas get impoverished schools. And who suffers the most when funding is based on wealth? Minorities and people of color. Because systemic racism keeps these communities disproportionately economically depressed. If the NEA is to be any kind of advocate for minority communities, if the NEA is to have any credibility when talking about systemic racism, we must prioritize fixing our completely unjust method of funding schools. Now, it's safe to say that whenever we start talking about using federal dollars, someone will invariably ask, if we take federal dollars, won't that mean federal control? While this is a legitimate question, it is important to understand that there is absolutely nothing saying that communities can't get federal cash and retain local control. We know this is doable because the Fed distributes money all the time without specifying exactly how it must be used. The recent bailouts are just one example. Corporations were given trillions with nothing more than a 5-member oversight panel to ensure the money is used properly. This concern, while something we'd want to make sure we address, is no way insurmountable. I'm also not suggesting that the federal government must become completely responsible for school funding, but they do need to be responsible for adding the necessary funding to make every school world-class. Not because it's some wonderful dream, but because that is what we are capable of. For more details, see my videos entitled A Call for an Education Bill of Rights and How We Win, which cover how our union could draft these demands, what those demands might look like, and how we could use the organizing power of our national union to win congressional passage of our Education Bill of Rights. I'm Mark Norberg, and I'm running for NEA President. For more info on this and other ideas on transforming our national union into a powerhouse for education reform and real social change, go to norbergforneaprez.com. Thank you.